Oh, welcome. You did two milestones. Number one, you made it to Friday, which is not nearly as big a deal as it used to be for many people. And you made it to May, which I think that's the one you celebrate right now. Is guess what? It is now May. You survived March and April. So that's big thumbs up to everybody. All right, I have a warning before I start today. I'm fired up. I'm just having one of those fired up kind of times. So if you're not familiar with my teaching when I'm fired up, you probably want to get your seatbelts on, get your seat in the upright and locked position, because I wear big boots when I'm fired up. And it's just a number of things going on around me that happen to flow through this text we'll be looking at today, because we're looking in Revelation chapter 2 at the shortest of the seven letters. Revelation has the seven letters to seven churches that Jesus basically in the vision dictates to John, who passes on to the people. And this is the shortest one, and we'll talk about why in just a second. Let me go ahead and read it to you. To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, "These are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Whoever has ears, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." As we said, that's exactly the same in all seven letters. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who is victorious will not be hurt at all by the second death. Now, the reason it's short, one of the reasons it's short, is because it doesn't have a condemnation. We talked yesterday about there is a flow to every one of these. There are the pieces that fit into place, from the greeting to there's a challenge in each one. There's a comment. But in the middle of every one of them, the bulk of every one of them, is a commendation, usually, followed by condemnation. Okay? And then that's probably followed by a challenge and a couple of other pieces. And this one has a strong commendation, but it has no condemnation, which makes it very, very much different than all the others. It also only has one reference to the Old Testament, where it talks about being the first and the last. That points back to Isaiah. Most of these are rich in Old Testament references. This one just has just the one from Isaiah. But I want to jump right into it. I want to just read it. We'll look at each phrase, talk about what section it's in, and there's so much in here that is so powerful, and I just want to jump into it. Okay? To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, "These are the words of him who is the first and the last." Now, that's, as we've been saying, a lot of this stuff is going to dig into the city where it was, to whom it was written. Okay, and this one, Smyrna, was one of the cities that called itself the first city of Asia, the first, what we would call Turkey, really, the first city of Asia. There was a ton of trade routes. There was a great harbor. It was an very powerful, very self-important city. Called itself the first city of Asia, and Jesus replies to himself as, "I'm both the first and the last. I don't just start things, I finish them." Okay, so that's what he says there. Now, the next phrase, first and last, who died and came to life again. Now, the word Smyrna sounds odd. I'm not suggesting anybody name their kids Smyrna. Don't see that one. But it is the exact same word as the word myrrh. Okay? And he says, who died and came to life again. Smyrna means myrrh. Myrrh is used 3 times in the New Testament. In Matthew 2, you know this one, right? It's one of the 3 gifts given to Jesus at his birth. Okay? In Mark 15, Jesus is on the cross, crucifixion, birth, crucifixion. At the crucifixion, they offer him some wine mixed with myrrh. Third time, in John 19, as Jesus is after the crucifixion, they are going to prepare his body for burial, and you know what they bring with them to prepare the body for burial? Any guesses? Yeah, myrrh. So, death, burial, and resurrection. And that's where it says, who died and came to life again. So that's why it uses who died and came to life again, because it really speaks to the concept of myrrh and Smyrna. Now, that's also relevant to the city of Smyrna, because Smyrna, before this time frame, had been about 2 miles north, and had been one of the great cities of the era. Just a huge, huge, wonderful city. until around the 7th century BC, the Lydians flattened it. Just completely flattened it, laid it to waste, and then they restored it as a little tiny village, and they wouldn't let it grow. They held it as a village. Can you imagine? You're in this city you thought was a great city, and you're stuck, and they won't let you do anything except be a little village. So that was the case until Alexander the Great, about 290 BC, comes along and says, wait a second, this is stupid. All the roads come here. There's a great harbor here. We should let this be a city again. So it gets restored. So when he says, died and came to life again, the Smyrna people are going, that's us. Our city died and came to life again. And Jesus, of course, is meaning a lot more than that. Now, let's keep moving. I know your afflictions and your poverty. I know your afflictions and your poverty. There's 2 words for poor in the New Testament. One of them means you got nothing extra. You're not going to, when you go through McDonald's, you're not getting the McFlurry because you don't have anything extra. That's sort of it's lower than that, but poor meaning I don't have anything extra. The other word means having nothing at all. Poor as in dirt poor, nothing. And that's the word here. You guys are poor. And there's a lot of reasons they were poor. The church in Smyrna was poor because they were persecuted, as we're going to see. They had it rough. It was not easy to be a Christian in Smyrna. And here's one of the reasons. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Now, what's going on here is how the Christians and the Jews got along varied city to city. Some cities they peacefully coexisted, but by this point, Christianity's kind of outgrown its Jewish roots as far as being tied to synagogues and things like that. And in Smyrna, the Jews did not like the Christians at all. They were extremely hostile to anyone who called themselves a Christian. Matter of fact, when in about about 60 years later after this, there's a guy named Polycarp who's the bishop of Smyrna, the head of the church at Smyrna, and he is martyred because he won't bow his knee to Rome, because Rome is huge here, of course. And when Polycarp is martyred, the Jews are the ones who gathered the wood for the fire he was burned in. And they did it on the Sabbath. They were so anxious to get rid of this Christian who was the bishop that they gathered the wood on the Sabbath to burn him to death. So that is the kind of hostility they faced. They faced among the Romans. Okay, let me tell you why they were persecuted by the Romans, by the way. I haven't mentioned that part. They were persecuted by the Romans because Smyrna is a very proud city, and also very, very proud of the fact that it's a Roman city. It's a city there is a temple. We have trouble picturing this because our governments don't quite go this weird cocked. But there was a temple to Rome, often to the emperor of Rome or to Rome itself. And so there was a temple to Rome, and you were expected to go in and offer sacrifice to the god of Rome on a regular basis. Well, that's going to be really hard for Christians. That was something that we can't have trouble relating to it, but that was a huge, huge problem for Christians throughout the Roman Empire, throughout the Bible times, and the next while, was we, Christians, would not swear undying allegiance to a country that way. We would not deny Christ in order to be citizens. Okay? And that was expected in Rome. Rome expected you to do that. So here you've got the Jews hate them, and the people of Smyrna don't like them because they are seen to be non-patriotic. They're seen to be hostile to what they stood for in Smyrna as the great city. And Christians had that double problem there because the Jews hated them, but were close by. So when Christians skipped out on offering the sacrifices to Rome, to the god of Rome or to the emperor, who do you think tattled on them? Yeah, the Jews. That's why he refers to them as the synagogue of Satan. They're always in trouble because the Jews are tattling, the people of Smyrna are opposed to them, and so they are persecuted physically and financially. That's why it says that they had nothing. But he says that one little catch there, but you are rich. Back in verse 9. You're poor, but you're rich, because we look at things differently than they do. And in verse 10, do not be afraid of what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Okay? So these people were persecuted. And I'm going to ride a horse around a little bit. You guys just strap down. It really bugs me when Christians refer to inconvenience as persecution. I have a very good friend, and this story is directly from him. And if you want to verify this story, he was there, he saw it, he participated in it. If you want to verify the story because you're not sure if I'm telling the truth, you message me privately. I will give you his name and you can check up on me. This guy was in China at a mission conference, an underground, top secret missions conference. Okay? And they had been told when they got there to turn off their phones, if they could, take the battery out of them, and do not turn your phone on for any reason because the government is looking for us. And they're at this Christian, private, secret, top secret Christian retreat center. A bunch of Christian pastors from there and some Christian pastors from America, and they're meeting and they're praying for each other and they're encouraging each other. And all this is going on, and one pastor there decided he should call home. And he did. He called home in the middle of the conference. And they got word in the conference, and again, I'm not making this up, I am talking to the dude who was there, and I'll give you his name if you want it. Okay? They get word the government's on its way, and they literally run up a hill to escape into the woods. And as they're escaping, the government arrives with bulldozers and flattens the conference center. Okay? That's persecution. The Christians in Smyrna were enslaved some. They were thrown in prison a lot, and some of them were martyred. Some of them were killed for their faith. Do you guys know what the word martyr means, by the way, where that comes from? The word martyr comes from the Greek word for witness. Because people were killed so often in this era for bearing witness for Christ, the word witness just became the word martyr because so many of them died in the process. Okay? So if you're going to say that we are persecuted, you're just wrong. We are sometimes inconvenienced. I am sitting on the back deck of my house at 1303 Georgia Bay, Sanford, North Carolina, 27332. It's a blue house. I have zero worry that someone from the government is even going to knock on the door and ask that I keep it down a little bit. Okay? I am teaching the Word of God. I am teaching it openly. I'm teaching it passionately. I am telling you what I believe you need to know from the Word of God. And my fear of the government interfering in any way is absolutely zero. I am not persecuted in any way, shape, or form. I am slightly being inconvenienced because we have to meet online instead of live, and then God takes that little bit of inconvenience and makes great things out of it because I'm looking at the names that are flashing through here, and you couldn't come to hear this Bible study if I were stuck in a building somewhere. But because I'm on the public airwaves doing this, you're here learning the Bible with me. We are not persecuted. We are occasionally inconvenienced. And when we mistake that and get all selfish and all about I, you listen to the people out there. Pardon my French, I am so pissed at Christians who right now are so selfish in what they want and what they think they, quote, need, and the fact that they're being inconvenienced. In Smyrna, they were imprisoned and killed for their faith. We have to go to church online in our pajamas on Sunday. They ain't the same thing, folks. They are not the same thing. But sometimes, and I believe this, I'm one of those really passionate, really weirdly radical Christians. I think it might be good if God actually sent us a little persecution so we would grow up as Christians. Told you I was fired up. I told you at the beginning. I warned you in the front. You may not want to sit through this one because Steve's fired up today. Because our job is to love the world, to love God, love people. Love is supposed to be the centerpiece. Yesterday, the church in Ephesus had left their first love, the love for the people and the love for God. And when our love for people and our love for God gets replaced by love for ourselves and love for our comfort, we are going so far the wrong direction that really and truly persecution is what we deserve. Oh, Steve's fired up. I apologize. I apologize. I apologize. Not really. Folks, we need to be mature Christians. We need to be people who stand up for our faith, are willing to be persecuted if that's what it takes, and are never going to confuse a little bit of inconvenience with the government showing up with a bulldozer to tear down our buildings. Peace. Now, let me just... Are you ready to move on? Ready to move on? Okay, sorry. Let's move on. Okay. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you. These people saying you will not suffer because you're a Christian cannot be more wrong. Throughout history, we've suffered for being Christians. We're not protected from suffering because we're Christians. Write that down. Okay? Throughout history, Christians have suffered for being Christians. They are not protected from suffering because they're Christians. Next point. Okay? Put some in prison, you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Now, numbers are big. Why does he use the number 10? Here's what I think. I think 10 is the number of bounty in the Bible. It's the number that means you got plenty. Your quiver is full. You got everything you need. And I think that's what that means. So your persecution will be complete. It will be full. But it's also a limited number, which means you're going to suffer, but you're only going to suffer what God allows. It's a limited number. It's almost a blessing. By the way, it's almost a blessing because 10 is the number of blessing. And so it's almost a blessing to suffer, and you will only suffer as God allows it in order to accomplish His purposes in your life and for His kingdom. Okay? Okay. Aren't you glad you tuned in? Okay. Next line. Be faithful. Be faithful. Don't be whiny. Be faithful, even to the point of death. And I will give you life as your victor's crown. Now, the word crown, this is very important you understand that. This is one of the most important truths in the Bible. The word crown in the Bible, the most common, there's two words for crown. One is a ruler's crown. The king wears that. It's a diadem. You've seen that in songs and stuff. The second crown, the really important crown, is the reward crown. You got that for winning an event, and that is the word Stephanos. It's the word Stephen. Yeah, that's the Stephen crown. And that's the important one, is the crown of Steve. The crown of Steve is the one that matters. And this is the one used here. It is the reward crown. It means you finished the race. You won. And the athletes, and Smyrna had, a lot of the cities had big Olympic-style games. Lots of different cities around there did. And Smyrna had one of the best, one of the better of the Olympic-style games. And they would get a crown for winning that. And they even referred to their own city. They said, our city's so beautiful. We're like the crown. We're like the Stephanos. And God is saying, yeah, I got a better crown than that. These worldly crowns that you want, I got something better for waiting for you when you persevere to the end. Okay? Okay? So, let's go ahead and finish this off. I got a really good point. Doing fine. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. That's in every one of them. It says the exact thing. Pay attention. Listen to what I'm saying. And I want to go back and remind you of something. Every letter to the churches in Revelation 2 and 3, every letter but one has a commendation, here's what you're doing right, followed by a condemnation, here's what you're doing wrong, and then a challenge to live into and fix the condemnation. This letter does not have a condemnation. These people are legitimately suffering for Jesus, and God is purifying them through the suffering to such an amazing extent that they don't have anything God wants them to fix. You can look back at the church of Ephesus from yesterday, and it seemed like they were doing everything right except the loving thing. And God said, I'm going to zap you. If you guys don't get this straight, I'm going to come and I'm going to remove your lampstick. I'm going to destroy your church. God's going to take the bulldozer to this church if you guys don't start loving. That's what he said to Ephesus. We saw that yesterday. This church in Smyrna, they're poor. It doesn't talk about their impact. It doesn't talk about their hard work. All it talks about is their perseverance. But through that suffering, God has purified them to the extent that there is nothing else he sees that they need. That's powerful. I mentioned earlier there's a dude named Polycarp, and Polycarp is the bishop of Smyrna. He's the head of the church at Smyrna. And about 155, Matter of fact, he would have been alive when this was written. If I'm not, yeah. 155, 60-ish years from now, from when this was written, Polycarp the bishop is tried for, what did he get? I think he was tried for treason, because he wouldn't sacrifice to the Roman emperor. He wouldn't do that sacrifice. And he was an old dude. He was like 86 years old. And there were people begging with him, come on, Polycarp. I don't know why his parents named him that. I am sure you're not going to take that as a name for your children or grandchildren. But Polycarp was his name. And they're begging with this old gentleman. And they're saying, dude, all you got to do is walk into the temple and light a candle. You don't have to bow your knee. You go in there, you light an incense candle, you go in, you light it, and you come back out. That is the sum total of what they're asking for you. Matter of fact, we will bring you the candle. We will bring you the incense candle to you right here. All you have to do is light a stinking match, or however they lit things in those days. Okay? You take this thing that's on fire, and you light this incense candle to the emperor, and we will let you go. That's all you have to do. That is the extent of your compromise. And there's a pile of wood right over there that the Jews have gathered on the Sabbath to burn this guy because they hate him so badly. But the Roman people are saying, all you got to do, dude, all you got to do, light the friggin' candle. That's all we're asking of you. Light the candle. And here's his quote, and it is one of the most famous quotes in the history of Christianity. For 86 years I have been his servant, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that just awesome? This dude has lived in this city for most of his life. He's lived in this city where the Jews are trying to take him down all the time, where the Christians are getting thrown in jail for not being patriotic enough. He has lived his entire life in real life, honest to goodness, persecution. His life has stunk from our perspective. He's not been inconvenienced, he's been persecuted. And his famous last words, for 86 years I have been his servant, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me? And they placed him on the fire, and they tied the ropes, and they lit the wood that had been gathered by the Jews who hated him, the synagogue of Satan, and he died with praise on his lips. That's why the church of Smyrna has no condemnation, why there's no negatives, there's not even a challenge except to keep it up. And I want to be that kind of Christian, that if actual real life persecution comes, I will say, how old am I now? For 57 years, I have been his servant, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me? Not my emperor, my king. That's the challenge that we are called to live into by the church at Smyrna. And that's what I'll leave you with this weekend. Don't mistake inconvenience with persecution, and live for the one who saves you above everything else. You guys have a great weekend. Maybe might see you online church on Sunday. Have a great day.